So today we're going to turn these boards into a walkway. We're going to turn these into the walkway. The walkway is going to start at the edge of our driveway with our railroad ties, and it's going to go ground level all the way over to the work shed. Similar to that one, we're not going to flatten it. We're not going to level it. It's just going to connect together and follow the ground from point A to point B using our wood that was delivered yesterday. Now let's get started. Since this is a ground platform, I got some bricks. And we're going to take our platform and we're going to put it a little bit off the ground. These boards were put in before, so they sat for about 2 weeks here. So as far as boards being steady, all the ground under them has been compacted by the boards sitting on them. So we're good there. Just have to find out what angle we want to use. Then we'll cut a spacer board. Figure out the space over here. We'll put a piece of wood, use that to balance everything out, use that to set our angle going that way. Our space in between our 6x6s is 17 inches. You should have 2 spacer boards. That way when you put one at one end and you adjust the second end, you don't move the first end. We're just going to set this board right here. And that's going to set our space for the first half. Then we'll do the same thing at this end. That's going to set our space for the bottom half. And then it becomes a little bit tricky, because we're trying to match up the boards. So although they're the same, but when you check the space here, they're not anywhere close. Even though they are touching here, they're not even close here. So that's the tricky part. So this angle, this board has to be a little bit shorter for my angle. Let's figure out how much shorter. Let's put the board on top. Okay, let's get started by putting this at the right level. Let's pick where we want this to be. Be about right here. Then we're going to mark our cut. Nick Pro pen. It was a great purchase. It's made everything much easier. So we'll mark on the top, put a little mark on the side, rotate the piece of wood. We'll continue that side mark all the way to the bottom on both sides. And that's going to give us a bottom spot to cut as well, because we're doing an angle. So what that angle will be right, we're using our square as a flat edge. And now I can cut half on each side with my saw. So now I got to lift up my wood and bring my wood to where my power is, which is over here. I'll cut my top piece straight through, following my line. And I will turn it over, and I'll cut the bottom piece. Then things get tricky. I'm now going to loosen my angle on my saw and angle it according to the line that I made. I'm angling it by putting the saw blade in what I just cut, because that's the angle I need, locking it, and then we'll go across, extending that cut down that I just made. It's 1/2. My angle should be the same because it is one line. Now do the second half. Okay, now when you get done with that, you take your Sawzall now you can see there's my first cut, there's my second cut, there's my third cut, my fourth cut. All I had is that little piece in the dead center you can't get to. That's why we had to use the Sawzall. Why didn't use the Sawzall for the whole thing if it was going to be so difficult? Sawzall on something like this will take you a very long time to get through it. So I didn't use the Sawzall. So now I got one beam cut exactly where I want it. Let's put this beam back. There we go. And there we go. There's the first beam. See, this one is straight. So it's going to be farther apart because it's on the right angle. This one is going to be a little bit crooked because it's on a side angle. So the question is, am I going to move this board over so it's not completely touching and get the same set of space all the way down? Or am I going to leave it closer and have more overhang? So externally it looks like the same. Internally we know it's different. If I was to leave the front piece right there, and then I was to move this over to where it matches over there. You don't really notice a big difference in the two of them. Now I got to do is extend this out so this goes over this way. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a 6x6 chunk here, bolted in. Then I'm going to put a 2x6 on the inside, bolted in. Go to my chunk on my board, connect it, then do the same thing on the outside. With the grass growing, you're not going to notice there's a little hump at this, but it's going to give good support for this end of the walkway. So that's how we're going to do that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect these up. The very first thing we're going to do is open up my wood pile so I can get a piece of wood out so I can start cutting something. Let's put this down. Let's cut me a 17. It's going to be our end piece. I'm going to bolt it to the actual support and then use it to keep everything in place, and that's where the wood's going to stay. My saw back to 90. I don't need any crooked curves at this point. Okay. So that happened because I had the wood being supported. And as I'm cutting it, this beam is a little higher than this beam. So it actually became tilted, causing the saw blade to bind. So I moved it back so it would bind the other way, and that's the way it fell. All good. Okay. Let's put our supports in place. One support in place. Two support in place. We'll put this in the middle, between the two of them. Just like that. Put a couple 45 degrees going into the 2x6 over. One side is hooked up. So I'm going to get another 17, measure it out. That way I can bind the other side of this to a 17-inch length, width. In case anybody is watching this and noticing this from the other videos, I am very tired today. I've been packing the house to move. Within a month and a half, 2 months, I'll actually be moved here. Full time. So here's what we're going to do here. We're going to make an H bracket. Except we're only going to have half the H. So I guess you could call it an I bracket. We're going to have our 17-inch width, which we know we need. We're now going to take our beam, and we can use nails on this. And we're going to nail our beam to a side post. And then we put this between, and we have something to put our screws into to hold it. Otherwise, you have to rig something up. We're kind of rigging something up now. Remember, we're only holding it in place. Why are we holding it in place? If anybody doesn't remember, we're holding it in place because if you have to have your cover or you're outside for your support, it's not supported very well. So yes, when I put the beams on top, all this is going to be very supported and it's all going to be bound together. But I need to have the support before I get to putting the beams on top or the planking. Your planking should never be what you rely on to keep your beams in place. So now we'll take this, we'll put this at the end over here. We'll screw it on one side, and then we'll screw it on the other. One screw there, one screw here. Then we'll add a second screw, 45-degree angle, so that beam is going to stay straight. It's going to stay in. When I put the beam in, it started to bend a little bit because it was crooked. Now it's straight. There. Now I have my base. Doesn't move. I've also gained another thing. That connects to that. So now, take my little piece of wood, take my saw. I'm going to do a little bit of an angle just by eyesight. And we're going to put a beam. I did that same thing again. Okay. So now I'm going to continue connecting everything together. I took my beam and I cut a little bit of an angle on it. I'm going to put it right here. And now I need a little bit more angle. You got to start with something. Yes, I know I have my angle thing in the shed. I can go and get it. I'm just a little tired and lazy. There we go. Now I can bolt this up to this beam. And that will give me connection between this and this. Just like that. Now screw that in. And this does not take nails because it will have some movement as you're walking across it. The nails will wiggle loose as time goes on. I don't want any wiggly loose. So we're just going to put 2 in just to hold it. Then I'm going to go get some more nails. Screws. There. Now A is held to B. You see how the beam is above my railroad tie? I could put a piece of wood down here on this. It would match this. I have to put a second piece of wood to match this so it would actually be level. And then I can bring that level all the way to here. That way when you're walking on the trail, you're not stepping on the railroad tie. You're going to be stepping from driveway to the piece of wood. So basically, I cap this once. It's not enough. This is still going to be up some. Then there's another solution. That's why you stop and think of things. You can think about other solutions as you're thinking about things. Cut the end off this. I could cap this at the edges with another piece of wood, which makes everything level. Then I don't have to bury this. Put caps on here, gives me a breathe hole underneath that last stake, and then I can bring my deck all the way to the end. So that's the solution I'm going to do. So these have to be cut right here. That way they'll fit, and I can put them in. With my solution concluded, I can now commence. Big drill. Now I'm right against my piece of wood. But if it takes 1, how many do you put in? You do 2. 2 is always better than 1. Never rely on just 1. So now I'll do 1 at a different angle. So I can continue my beam across. With these being right there. Again, not support or anything. So these are going to go here. I'm going to put my beam on top of these. Okay, so I'm back with some more screws. I also changed the camera angle. So now I can put my other screws in. I'll put one going this way here. Okay, so one side is done. Now we're down to the other side. So I need to hold these together. That works. There we go. Now what I need to do is do that side. So that's my goal. I'm going to put a piece of wood on the inside. I'm going to put a piece of wood on the outside. So across this side, I'm at 28. Over here, I'm at 31. So this becomes shorter because I got to go to 28. There, my external is 28 now. I'm going to cut this crooked on an angle. That matches this angle. If you're matching an angle, you can take your saw, put it on the angle you're trying to match, and put the blade in the angle that your wood's going to come. And I know that is a 40, 30, 38 degree angle now. So now since I got the right angle, I can cut this. Doesn't have to be exact, because this is just a fill line. Now I'll turn it upside down, put it in. And as you can see, angle of the board matches the piece perfect on the way I did that. Now yes, I do want these to be both fairly ground-based, but at the same time, I don't want it to be ridiculously low. This one is ridiculously low. So let's put a brick under it and see how much that brings it up. Much better. Now we have our beams we're putting there, so you can bring this right to the same. Here we go. Nails are over there, of course. If we didn't catch it because of camera angle, this was going way low, which is way crooked. I didn't want to have this whole thing be crooked where it's obvious, because you are doing ground level, but there's no reason for it to be completely ridiculous. So I put a brick under this, and now this side lines up to my wood over there much better. That's my goal. Right there. That's where I need to be. So I'm going to start a couple of these in and then drill them in place. We'll start this one to set a level. Level's still good. Level's still good. Since this is almost a support beam, we're going to put a few screws in it. There we go. Now what I need to do is have a support for my beams. I just need to cut this right here. At that angle. And there's about the same angle I already have. I'm going to use this as a flat edge to go from side to side. That's how I'm going to do my corner. This is hooked into this is hooked into this, and I'll probably put a couple sideways as well. There we go. I got my angle. There's my support. Now these beams are going to come across here at an angle, and slowly they're going to be cut down. So they're going to fill this gap. That's why there has to be a piece on both sides, because the beams are going to follow the beam pattern of doing this. Then I'll have one across here that butts up into it. I'll probably do the butt up first, because then I can cut those other ones right into it. I'll probably do these first, then cut them off, and then butt up. That way I have a nice straight line. So there we go. We have our support for our deck. So now we got to figure out how big our beams, how wide they're going to be. We know they're not going to go to the edge. We know they're not going to taper down. So if I was to do it here, I'd make it 32. But this is not the widest part of my whole pathway. I have to look at the widest point of my pathway. That way all the beams are right. And that would be right there. That's the widest point of my pathway. So the widest point of my pathway, 32, would still work. We know 32 on that side works. We know 32 on this side works. What about right in the middle? What about where those two pieces come together, right here? Is 32 going to work there? If I go in with my 32, right to here, it works there. If I go in my 32 this way, it works there. So yes, I can have my corner be somewhere in the middle, not here, but somewhere on this line. So this line would be my 0 point. With these boards come in, but somewhere in there, these boards also come in. And 32 will allow me to bring those boards all the way, actually all the way up to here. And still not be under, but be over. So 32 is our distance. Now I gotta just cut a bunch of 32 boards. Okay, so we cut a bunch of beams. We'll find out how they fit on our walk. All we're gonna do is line them up. Now we start screwing down. Back. Push it up. Screw the first one down. And why am I putting this one here? I'm putting it here because that's my side beam. Now I'm making a solid end that's going to keep everything in place. And since it's my end beam, I'm going to go off to the edge on this one and hold that down as well. Now I have a solid end beam. It's been very dry lately. Yes, it did rain today, but overall it's been very dry. When it's very dry, you have to leave a gap. When I did this side, I left no gap because this side was damp, it was wet, everything was wet. All it's going to do is shrink. It's not going to expand. All this wood is fairly dry from sitting in the sun and having the heat down here in Florida that we have. So this side is going to expand. So I am leaving a gap. And that gap is the size of my mail. That's it. That's not forward. Enough. You don't have to start this tedious motion. I will give you one piece of information. So in that case, I'm using a lot of house. And we think about the house, and we want to do stuff. So you get ready for outside videos. So why am I using 6x6 as my beams? Do I need to use 6x6 as my beams across the floor? No. I'm using 6x6 because I bought these to put them under the house. Then I realized because of the angles of the house and the kitchen and where things are located, there's no way to get them under the house unless I tear something up to get an angle to get them under the house. So I'm going to be getting metal beams or aluminum I-beams that are shorter that I can bolt together to put them under the house. Because I didn't want to put these and cut them in half, and it kind of ruins the support of a 6x6 to hold your house up. So I threw them down here last time, and that's where this came from. This came from just throwing them down because they're in the driveway. I wanted them out of the driveway, and there we go. They basically have stayed in the same place, and now they've become the base of my deck, where I can actually build a lake or a river or something under them, because they're only supported at each end. They're not supported in the middle, because that's natural. If they warp a little bit, it looks natural. I don't think they'll warp, but if they do, I'm not worried about it. I cut the edge off to start the process. This goes right here on the corner. This goes right here to start the next set on the corner. So two of those actually work together to get the corner right. Yeah. That angle was a little bit off. I have to trim it down some. There we go. This is what I call a binding piece. It binds my ends together as well as everything else. So it's a piece I'm going to be putting in with screws. Put it in, bring it up, put it sideways. We know where to go. Now this piece is going to end up going straight across here. Just like that. Now I got to cut all these other angles. The easiest way to cut an angle is you put the piece of where it's going to end up. Get a pencil. Get a flat edge. You don't want to be in here. You gotta heat it out. You know where the board's going to end up. So now you can take your flat edge, draw a line where the board's going to be, and now you know where to cut it. Take your next piece. Again, you know what the board's going to be. one edge, line up the other edge, draw a line, and you got one cut. Do the same thing the other way. And you got the other cut. If it doesn't work, all it is a piece of wood. If it does work, it's kind of neat that it worked. Okay, piece of wood 1, piece of wood 2, piece of wood 3. Okay, piece of wood 1 is okay. I need a 90 degree to make sure that's the right angle. Perfect. Piece of wood 2. Okay, so piece of wood 3, to be honest, didn't cut like I should have been. It didn't cut right. We're going to put it in for now. I might change it later though. It's just 2 screws and I can take it out. We'll see how it looks in the mix of everything else. Other way of doing it is getting 2 pieces of wood, fitting them in there, like 2 2x4s maybe. Fitting them in there and then snipping them off. Okay, now's where we start doing the fancy stuff. I'm going to continue these boards all the way to the end, using the same spacing as before. Except now, since it's the end, I'm going to use my screws to screw everything in. One side stays looking exactly the same. However, the other side is a little bit different. My screws are now following the new beam, which is that beam I put in the front. You did miss a couple things because the Camry battery did die. All you did is just continue these down. I did no fancy stuff at this point. So you really miss nothing. Now, since everything's in place, now we got to draw a straight line. Easiest way to draw a line from point A to point B, if you know the 2 points, is to use a chalk line. So I'm going to put a nail in my end point right here. That's what my chalk line is going to hook to. Then I know my end point right here. Up so it unrolls. Let it unroll nicely. Bring that right to the end of my board. Check down, make sure it's always right. Hold the end tight, and only do this once. And then take it off. Now I have a straight line that goes from side to side. And you look down to make sure you're not hitting your board going all the way across, and I'm not. So then I take my saw and I'll cut my chalk line. The one thing you want to do is you want to adjust your saw so you're not going to cut too deep. So check your saw to see. Looks like this just barely misses because it's not a full-size saw, it's an electric saw. So that just missing, I'm good. Then I follow my line. Move my nail out of the way so I don't hit the nail. It would be very bad. And just slowly follow the line. Doesn't look like my battery saw likes following this line very much. It's too deep for it. Now I got my straight point. I have my little spacers I'm going to use. I think I have a couple more spacers. My step is going to come straight out. So I'm going to measure straight across. 41 inches. So I need a 41-inch step. I'm going to put it right here to see how it looks. Oh, now. It's one more 41-inch piece. Okay, there we go. The whole deck going all the way over. So this is another finished project. Like I said, that corner might stay, might not stay, but it's real good for now. So now the deck, the walkway, the path, and the shed are all completed. So now we have a complete work shed. Everything's done, everything's finished, and now it's time for me to get busy inside. I'll talk to you later when I get ready to build something else. Jesus.